There's a motorcycle you have almost certainly never seen in an American showroom. It has a single cylinder. It makes about 11 horsepower. It has been in continuous production since 1976. And it has almost certainly outbuilt every motorcycle America has ever made, combined. 15 million of them have been built in Brazil alone. Millions more in Pakistan, China, Nigeria, Thailand, Turkey, Vietnam. It is the single best-selling motorcycle in Brazil every single year for over 4 decades. It is the bike that gets your coffee delivered in Lagos, your wife's cousin to work in Karachi, your groceries home in Sao Paulo. It is the most produced conventional motorcycle in human history. It's called the Honda CG, and Honda has never once sold it to you. This is the story of why. Hamamatsu, Japan, 1974. For years, the legend went like this. Honda sold the CB125 in the 1970s in Brazil. The bikes kept blowing up in the rural outback, and Honda scrambled to build a tougher replacement from the ground up. Great story, also wrong. The real origin story is better. In May of 1974, 2 Honda engineers, Takeshi Inagaki and Inosuke Miyachi, flew out of Haneda Airport on a month-long field trip. Their itinerary was Thailand, Malaysia, Indonesia, the Philippines, Iran, and Pakistan. They were not there to sell motorcycles. They were there to watch them die. What they saw changed everything. 3 people and a goat on a single CB125. Oil that never got changed because the owner could not read the dipstick. Air filters packed solid with red laterite dust. Valve clearances that drifted until the engine would not start. And the thing that really got their attention, overhead cam bearings on the CB series, gnawing through their shells because the oil that was supposed to be lubricating them had turned into tar 3,000 kilometers ago. They flew home, sat down at their drafting tables, and designed a motorcycle around a single rule. Assume nobody will ever maintain it. Assume the oil is bad. Assume the dust is in the engine. Assume the rider weighs 100 kilograms and brought 2 friends. Build the bike that survives all of it. That bike launched in Thailand in March of 1975. Brazil got it a year and a half later, in October of 1976, at Honda's brand new factory in Manaus. It just happened to fit Brazil even better than it fit Bangkok. The name was CG, and it was about to rewrite the motorcycle industry. Here's the trick. Everybody else in Honda's 1976 lineup had overhead cams. The CB125 had 1, the CB354 had 1, the Goldwing had 2. Overhead cams were modern. Overhead cams let you reverend overhead cams sold magazines. Inagaki and Miyachi threw them out. The CG got an overhead valve engine, push rods, 2 valves, 124 cubic centimeters. Bore and stroke, 56.5 millimeters by 49.5 millimeters. You should remember those numbers because they are about to take over the Chinese motorcycle industry. Now, you will hear people say the CG is unkillable because pushrod engines do not have timing chains that can snap. That is not quite right. Most pushrod engines absolutely have timing chains or timing gears. Harley Big Twins, Chevy Small Blocks, air-cooled Volkswagens, all pushrod, all with chains or gears between the crank and the cam. What Honda actually did on the CG was weirder and smarter. They drove the single short camshaft through a set of gears. Honda's own Heritage Archive confirms it. Where a CB125 had a cam chain running up to an overhead cam, the CG has a gear stack sitting roughly in the same real estate. Gears do not stretch, gears do not skip teeth, gears just work. That is not a typo. Honda looked at the most modern option and said, nope, we want the thing that cannot get tired. 11 horsepower at 9,000 revolutions per minute, 10 Newton meters of torque, a 4-speed gearbox. Kickstarter is standard, electric start optional for people who don't believe in character. Around 90 miles per gallon real world, and Honda's own tests push that even higher. Top speed just north of 60 miles an hour on a good day with the wind behind you. On paper, it's the most boring motorcycle specification ever written. In practice, it's the most important. Brazil is where the CG stopped being a motorcycle and became infrastructure. Honda opened the Manaus factory, Moto Honda da Amazonia, in 1976. 276 employees, capacity of about 2,200 motorcycles a year. Pelé did the television commercials. Brazilians took one look at a bike that survived Amazonian humidity, highland dust, and Sao Paulo traffic, and they made their choice. 40 years later, that same factory builds over 1 million motorcycles a year. The CG160 is the best-selling motorcycle in Brazil, as it has been every single year for over 4 straight decades. Through 2024, the CG accounted for roughly 60% of every new motorcycle registered in the country, 6 out of 10. I mean, think about that for a second. In the United States, Harley-Davidson is considered dominant when it has a 20% market share. In Brazil, one single Honda model, one nameplate, has triple that. And zoom out to the Honda brand as a whole, and it gets sillier. Honda's Brazilian market share peaked near 80% around 2013. It sits around 2/3 today. In December of 2024, cumulative CG production in Brazil crossed 15 million units. That makes the CG the most produced motor vehicle in Brazilian history, period, surpassing the Volkswagen Gol, which topped out around 8.5 million. The best-selling car in Brazil in 2023 moved about 120,000 units. The CG moved over 400,000. The CG outsells the best-selling car in its own country by more than 3-1. That's the kind of number that makes accountants cry. Shift west, Pakistan. Atlas Honda, founded in 1964, is headquartered in Sheikhupura, about 30 miles from Lahore. Atlas Honda has been building the CG125 since the bike first arrived in the country, and they've been building it continuously ever since. Atlas Honda today produces over 1 million motorcycles a year. The vast majority are CG125s. Cumulative production runs into many millions. This is the motorcycle that moves Pakistan. Students, couriers, cops, farmers, commuters, the whole motorized middle of the country sits on a CG. But here's the strange part. Until very recently, you could walk into a showroom in Lahore and buy a brand new Atlas Honda CG125. That was, spec for spec, essentially the bike Honda designed in the mid-70s. Carbureted, points ignition, kickstart only, 4-speed gearbox, 6-volt electrical system on the base model. That wasn't an accident, that was a market choice. The cheapest Atlas Honda CG in Pakistan kept rolling out of the factory with 80 spec points ignition for years after Honda switched the Japanese and Brazilian CGs to CDI. Not because Atlas Honda was lazy, not because Pakistanis secretly preferred points to electronic ignition, but because at the bottom of the market, in a country where a village mechanic might be hours from the nearest dealer, points you can file and regap with a matchbook and a screwdriver beat a sealed CDI box you have to mail order from Karachi. Call it folk engineering. And it worked. A brand new base spec Atlas Honda CG 125 today retails for about 238,000 rupees, roughly 850 American dollars, for a brand new motorcycle from the factory with a warranty. If you're wondering how Honda makes that math work, so is everyone else. The CG's third kingdom is Africa, and specifically Nigeria, where Honda sells the Ace family CG lineage commuters assembled locally for well under $1,000. In Lagos, Kano, Ibadan, the Ace and its CG cousins are the bloodstream of the informal economy. Okada motorcycle taxis, delivery services, courier work. The CG shows up because it's the cheapest, reliable new motorcycle a working Nigerian can buy, and reliability at that price point is the entire game. Then there's China, and China is where the CG stops being just a Honda product and becomes a standard. Honda brought CG technology into China legitimately. First, a 1981 technical agreement with state-owned Jialing, one of the original Chongqing defense conglomerates turned motorcycle builder. Then a full joint venture with Wuyang in 1992, followed by Sundero Honda. Wuyang still builds the CG125 today, badged as the WY125, now with fuel injection and CDI. But once thousands of Chinese engineers and suppliers in Chongqing knew how to build a CG, that knowledge leaked. It flowed into a new cluster of private companies, all founded within about a year of each other. Lifan in 1992, Zongshan in 1992, Lonsin in 1993. They did not reverse engineer the CG in a clean room. They hired the people who used to build it at the joint ventures, bought tooling from the same supplier base, and iterated. To this day, a huge share of under 250 cubic centimeter Chinese engines trace their bore, their stroke, their basic architecture, 56.5 by 49.5 millimeters, straight back to that 1976 Honda. When you buy a generic Chinese 125, a pit bike engine, an ATV engine, a rebadged street bike from a brand you have never heard of, you are buying, functionally, a CG. And no, I am not making that up. Honda did sue. In 2004, Honda took Chongqing Lifan to Beijing's Second Intermediate People's Court and won about 177,000 United States dollars in damages. But that was a trademark case over the Honda brand and a copycat logo. Honda never successfully stopped the engine itself from spreading. The CG did not just conquer markets, it conquered the supply chain. If you're finding this story as weird and interesting as I do, hit subscribe. I cover motorcycle history, forgotten bikes, and the industry's strangest corners every week. So let's talk about durability. Ask any moto taxi driver in Fortaleza, any delivery rider in Lagos, any daily commuter in Karachi, and they will tell you stories. The CG that ran 500,000 kilometers, the one a grandfather bought new in 1978 that the grandkid still rides to school, the fleet bike that only ever got oil changes and spark plugs and is still on the original piston at 250,000 kilometers. Are those stories documented in Guinness? No. Do you find a specific 500,000 kilometer CG profiled in Cycle World? Also no. The specific mileage legends are folklore. I will be honest with you about that. But the Brazilian automotive press has covered CG 150 Titans, pulling 12-hour days, 7 days a week in the moto taxi fleets, clearing over 120,000 kilometers without ever cracking the engine open. Honda Brazil itself has produced more than 15 million of these things at a single factory over 40 plus years. Pakistan, Nigeria, China, continuous production, all of it. So the specific mileage legends are folklore. The civilization scale reliability is fact. The CG is not special because somebody rode one to the moon. The CG is special because it became load-bearing infrastructure across 3 continents, and nobody ever had to have a conversation about whether that was a good idea. Now we get to the question, if this bike is the most produced real motorcycle in human history, if it's so reliable that 3 separate continents have built their informal economies on top of it, if it's genuinely cheaper than any motorcycle Honda sells in the United States, why have Americans never been allowed to buy one? The answer is 3 things stacked on top of each other, and none of them are conspiracies. Reason 1. Emissions and safety certification. Selling a new motorcycle model in the United States means Environmental Protection Agency certification, which runs tens of thousands of dollars per engine family every single year just in test lab fees. Add California Air Resources Board certification on top. Add Department of Transportation, self-compliance testing against federal motor vehicle safety standards. Add labeling, an agent for service of process, an importer of record, product liability insurance, and a recall infrastructure, and you are quickly into 6 figures for every model you want to put in a showroom. For a bike that would retail for $1,000, the math never works. Reason 2. The CG's classic engine, the carbureted pushrod that built the empire, does not meet modern United States emission standards without significant redesign. Brazil had to move the CG platform to an overhead cam-flex fuel architecture in 2009 to meet their own emissions rules. The United States is stricter. A compliance CG would no longer really be a CG. It would be a new bike wearing the name. Reason 3, and this is the one nobody wants to say out loud, the United States motorcycle market does not want it. New rider sales are dominated by cruisers, sport bikes, and adventure bikes. Honda just overtook Harley-Davidson as the #1 motorcycle brand in America in 2024, about 20% of the market versus Harley-Davidson's 19.9%. And the best-selling bike in Honda's entire American lineup is the Rebel 500, a parallel twin cruiser aimed at new riders, styled, comfortable, and priced around $6,500. An American buyer picking between a Rebel 500 and a bare-bones kickstart CG 125, making 11 horsepower, is picking the Rebel every single time, and Honda knows it. The CG's whole value proposition, brutal reliability at a $1,000 price point for riders whose alternative is walking does not exist in a market where the alternative is an Uber. One quick myth to kill on the way out. You may have heard that the CM125 Custom that Honda sold in America in the late 1970s and the early 1980s was a CG in a chopper costume. It was not. The CM125 was a parallel twin overhead cam cruiser, completely different engine, chain-driven top end, no push rods, no gear-driven cam, nothing in common with the CG. No CG-derived street bike has ever been officially sold in the United States. Full stop. Here's what I keep coming back to. The motorcycle industry in the United States has spent 50 years getting more complicated, more power, more electronics, more rider modes, more screens, more cost. The cheapest new street-legal motorcycle Honda sells in America is the Grom at around $3,500. The average price of a new motorcycle in the United States is north of $10,000. Meanwhile, somewhere in Pakistan, Atlas Honda is loading brand new CG 125s onto trucks at a factory that has been building essentially the same motorcycle for 40 years. $850, 11 horsepower, 90 miles per gallon, parts available on every street corner, serviceable with a screwdriver, will outlast the rider everywhere. Somewhere in Manaus, a CG 160 is rolling off the line. Fuel injected now, flex fuel now, a bit more refined, about 15 horsepower, but still unmistakably a CG. Around $3,500 out the door. It'll go to a moto taxi driver in Salvador or a commuter in Curitiba, and it'll run and keep running and keep running, and eventually it'll be passed down. Somewhere in Lagos, an Ace 110 with a CG lineage engine is hauling 2 people and a sack of rice through 4 inches of standing water, and its owner is not thinking about torque curves or ride modes. He is thinking about getting home. The CG is the motorcycle the rest of the world decided it actually needed. Not the motorcycle that wins magazine comparisons, not the motorcycle you lust after on Instagram, the motorcycle that works. The CG story is not really unique to motorcycles. Almost every category of product has a version of it. The thing that dominates the global majority and is invisible in the United States. The tool that costs 3 times less in Nairobi than it does in Nashville. The bike, the phone, the appliance, the machine that the rest of the planet considers normal and Americans have never even heard of. In most of the world, the Honda CG is not a story. It's just the motorcycle parked outside the shop, the one the delivery guy rides, the one the kid learns on, the one the dad passes down to the son. 15 million of them in Brazil, and many millions more scattered across the rest of the planet, quietly running the daily business of half the world. In America, it's a rumor, a bike people notice when they travel and then wonder about when they get home. The most successful real motorcycle ever built, sitting right there in plain sight, just not where we're looking. 1974, 2 engineers, 1 month in Southeast Asia, 1 rule: assume nobody will ever maintain it. 50 years later, nobody has. If you enjoyed this deep dive, hit subscribe. Next week, I will cover another forgotten bike with a story almost as wild as this one. Thanks for watching.